Hey, it's Jay, and here's my review of Pixar's latest installment, Onward. This is the latest film in the Pixar canon, and it involves two brothers. So let's get into the plot. So, a world that is inhabited by mythical creatures and wizards and everything that you've read in fairy tales, you and me have read in fairy tales, exists in this world. And lots of people can do it, but there are some who just can't get the grasp of doing these, magical spells. Couple that with the fact that technology is increasingly getting better and more advanced and everything like that. People kind of put magic to the side. They kind of bookshelve it and focus on this new technology they have that makes their lives quote unquote easier. So everyone kind of forgets about magic, and people become a lot more grounded by looking at TV or light bulbs, everything like that. Like in the first scene, a guy's trying to conjure a fire, and he looks in a house, and someone had created a light bulb. So it's like, why do I need fire to light up my room when I can literally just go get a light bulb and see what that guy's up to? So everyone just seems to shaft magic because things have gotten a lot easier. So cut to, I guess, this mythical world's equivalent of modern day. Two brothers by the name of Ian Lightfoot and Barley Lightfoot, voiced by Tom Holland and Chris Pratt respectively, live in the town of New Mushroomton. Ian is a high school student who lacks a lot of self-confidence, and Barley is this loud, confident, RPG-playing, history-loving dude. By history-loving, I mean he's fascinated by the time that New Mushroomton was engulfed in magic, and thoroughly believes that the role-playing game he plays is accurate to those times. Ian and Barley's father, Wilden Lightfoot, voiced by Kyle Bornheimer, died of a very severe illness shortly before Ian's birth, leaving their mom, Laurel Lightfoot, voiced by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, to raise them on their own. However, she seems to have gotten a new boyfriend by the name of Colt Bronco, who is part of the police department, voiced by Mel Rodriguez, and Ian and Barley aren't a huge fan of him, so it looks like things just aren't looking up for Ian because he's a high school student with no confidence, and that can bode very poorly, especially in an environment like high school. So it is the morning of Ian's 16th birthday, and kind of being defeated that he couldn't muster up the courage to ask some classmates to his party due to Barley arriving in his van, Guinevere. And kind of embarrassing him. He loses all self-confidence. He's very, very upset. However, since he's 16, Laurel, their mother, brings down a gift from their father that he told her to give them once they're both over 16. And since Barley is way past 16 and Ian just turned 16, it's time to give him this gift. And it is a staff with a magical gem and a sheet of paper that describes the visitation spell, which, if conjured correctly, will allow somebody to be resurrected for one day only. This brings huge hope for Ian and Barley that they'll finally, Barley will get to revisit his father, and Ian will finally get to meet his father. However, after many attempts, Barley just can't get the spell to work. Defeated, Ian continues to read and try to figure out what's going on, and he, unknowingly actually performs the spell. However, due to a mishap in, I guess, his stance, only Wilden's legs and feet get summoned. The top part of his body is gone. And in order to get the top half to try the spell again, they need another Phoenix Crystal, which they're not easy to come by. Determined to fix their mistake, they all hop into Guinevere, all being Ian and Barley, and go off an adventure to get this other Phoenix Crystal. However, Laurel finds out where they've gone, and she pursues them as well because, she's worried about her kids. So it looks like the hunt is on for a Phoenix Crystal. So, Ian and Barley's first stop is the Manticore's Tavern. The Manticore is a massive monster in Barley's RPG game. However, they come to find that the tavern is now an actual, tavern, like a restaurant for families. And the Manticore, now named Corey, voiced by Octavia Spencer, is the uptight manager. In an argument on whether or not they could take the map or not, because Corey is very against them taking the map because it can lead to danger, an argument breaks out, and she finally realizes that her life is boring as hell and used to be so much more adventurous and action-packed that she scares away all the customers in a fit of rage, inadvertently burning her restaurant to the ground. However, Barley swipes one of those children menus that you get in restaurants, and the only clue they have is Raven's Point, because that was it was like a word unscramble, and that's what was unscrambled. So they use that to continue their journey. Laurel arrives at this burnt down restaurant just as Corey is talking about the two boys who were there. And she befriends Corey, and Corey agrees to help out Laurel to help find her kids, and also warns her that the mission they're going on to get a Raven's Crystal will resurrect a curse. So they need to be very careful. They need to get to the boys before they do something like that. Also, to counteract said curse, they need a very special sword that the Manticore owned, but gave it away, obviously, when she became a tavern owner. And they proceed to steal it from a pawn shop, because the Manticore's like this lion scorpion thing, and uses her little stinger to prick the pawn shop owner, because she's like, you owe me like $10,000, I guess the equivalent of like $10,000 in our money. And obviously they don't have that type of money, so they just kind of steal it because this is important. So I don't know how many crimes everybody in this movie has broken, but they've done a lot. So Ian and Barley are finally out of New Mushroom Tin, and they narrowly escape a run-in with the police and this gang of pixies, this motorcycle gang of pixies. Ian has this uncanny ability to cast spells, so he must have like a special touch in him. And they make it to Raven's Point, and they decipher that Raven's Point isn't just where the raven is, it's actually where the raven's beak is pointed to. So they follow this path. However, Colt Bronco, Laurel's boyfriend, has been, made aware of the boys' disappearance and goes to follow them and discovers where they are and tries to stop him by calling him back up, and there's a huge chase sequence. And when Ian can't get the most powerful spell to knock down a bunch of rocks to stop the cops, Barley sacrifices Guinevere, as having it crash into some rocks, creating a barricade, and they continue on their journey. And they discover that the final raven is pointing downward, that they have to go down into the sewer-esque type thing, but it's not really, it's like a cave, and follow the water. They encounter traps and hazards, and Ian and Barley bond by, practicing spells, trying to get better at it, and really try to hone in his skills in case any other dangers come. They finally see a light, and this is where the Phoenix Crystal is, only to pop their heads up on, back into the real world, I guess, to find it's Ian's high school. Ian, way back, had suggested they take the quicker route, but Barley's like, no. In a fantasy quest like this, you gotta take the off path. You gotta take the longer path. You gotta take the path that may have some peril in order for this to work. And Ian finally snaps, and he's like, if I listened to you, and here we are, there's no Phoenix Crystal, this is my high school, and lashes out at Barley, and really, really serious stuff, and takes Wilden because he's just really upset because Barley may have just ruined his chance to finally meet his father, something that he's been longing to do for 16 years. Earlier on in the movie, when they're in the run-in with the cops, Ian puts on a disguise spell, and if you lie, your true self starts to get formed, and the cop calls Barley a screw-up, and Ian's like, no, he's not a screw-up, and actually reveals that he's been lying about that. So that tension is also underlying, and Ian brings it up in full force here as well, that yes, you are a screw-up. You screwed up my one chance to meet my father. So very, very, very emotional scene where Ian finally snaps and yells at his brother for ruining something that he's been wanting for 16 years. So, as Ian is kind of sitting with Wilden's legs, he starts to realize, because Ian has like a checklist of everything he wanted to do with his dad, and he starts to realize he's been doing everything on this list with Barley. He's taken driving lessons, which he drove on the highway. He's laughed, he's played catch, he's done so many things that he's wanted to do with his dad, and he starts to realize that Barley's kind of been an effective father in Wilden's, death. And it finally connects in his head, and he goes to apologize, but Barley won't give up on finding this Phoenix gem, and he connects the dots with this rock thing that they got that tells them to go through the water way back when, and he puts it in the fountain that they're trying to destroy, because, as I told you, Barley's a history nut, and this fountain is very historical in the magic that it has, and he was one of those people who tied himself to it to stop them from bulldozing it, and he's back again, and they try to stop him, but he's finally able to awaken the Phoenix crystal, also effectively waking up the curse, which turns Ian's high school into a dragon seeking said Phoenix crystal. However, Corey and Laurel fly in, and Laurel is able to stab the sword into the core of the dragon. At the same time, the staff gets knocked out of Ian's hand and falls into the ocean. But, as mentioned at the beginning of the movie, any bit of that staff is magic. So Ian has a little splinter in his hand. He's able to use that to create a brand new staff. And he uses it to cast the visitation spell. And that's when he reveals to Barley, you've been my father all this time. So I'm so sorry for what I said. Say goodbye to Dad for me, because Ian knows he has to go fight this thing. And what I mean by say goodbye, because when Wilden was in the hospital on his deathbed, Barley got scared and he couldn't muster up the courage to go in and say goodbye, and that's his biggest regret, and that's why he's never been scared for the rest of his life, because it's just what it led to him. So Ian's say goodbye to Dad, you need to do this. And so Ian fights off the dragon and is able to defeat it, and Wilden is completely formed. He and Barley share a hug, and Barley finally gets to say goodbye to Dad. And finally, Ian gets brought out of the rubble. Barley tells Ian that Wilden is proud of him, and that he wanted him to give him this, and the brothers embrace. So it looks like they finally got the closures that they needed in life. Ian found his father figure in Barley, and Barley finally got to say goodbye to his father, and the one big regret he has in his life. So, during the aftermath, Ian's self-confidence has grown exponentially, and his magic casting has grown exponentially as well, and he repaints and makes Barley a brand new Guinevere, dubbed Guinevere 2, and they go on their adventures, and the Manticore's Tavern is opened up again to its original form, and the Manticore kind of spices things up by telling her adventures of peril. And the boys continue off and making Guinevere fly off into the distance to go see which paths and which quests they can go on. And that was Disney's Onward. Now, is this Pixar's best? No. But I don't get the hate that this movie is getting. I really don't. I think it's a very heartfelt mission. I think the whole dynamic between Ian and Barley, where Ian just thinks that Barley's this big screw up and he's embarrassed by him and everything like that, he finally realizes that I might not have had a father, but I've had Barley, who's done everything with me that a father would be doing if I had one. And it's just, I think that's a very, very powerful message that this movie was passing on. And the voice performances of everybody was great, but the dynamic between Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, which we've seen them before on screen together in Infinity War, but this was a whole other dynamic because this was voice acting, and you could really hear the bonding that the two actors in real life were having translated through the film. It was really, really something special with how they performed in this movie. The graphics, the visuals in this movie were gorgeous too. The spells, everything how it was kind of based off of an RPG, which is really, really cool. Something like Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons. Really, really special and added a great element to everything and gave it a nice vibrance. I love the side characters like the Pixie motorcycle gang. Just so fun. He captured such anger and aggression in such a little tiny thing. And of course they had to have the trope of knocking the motorcycle over. You don't do that to a motorcycle gang, or else you're gonna get your ass handed to you. And these pixies were no joke. I loved everything about it. I loved Colt Bronco's personality because he is that dad. I mean, that boyfriend who's trying his best. He's trying his best to be that father figure for Ian and Barley, but it's just not working. They're not connecting with him. Obviously, at the end of the film, they start to connect with him, but at the beginning, it's just like, man, he's trying. He's trying so hard just to gain some sort of respect from these two boys who may become the father of. And it's just great. I love how in one scene, Ian has like a tape recording of his father talking and him talking with his mother, and he uses it to kind of have like a fake conversation. I thought that was really touching too, how he's listened to that tape so often that he knows what his father's going to say and when he's going to say it, and he, mutters that conversation back to him. I thought that was really, really great. Really sweet. The magic also offered great dynamics. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word there. Dynamics to the film too, because there was a spell for every situation, yes, but even though Ian seems to be a prodigy of casting magic, he didn't get it right away, which is just really smart writing, because we've seen these films where people just get it right away, and then it's like, oh, well, what was the point? No, Ian messed up a couple times. Barley messed him up because, you gotta remember, Barley is a master at this stuff, a master at magic. And so he was like, always distracting him constantly, telling him what he's doing wrong. His stance, his elbows were too tucked, or they weren't in the right position, or he wasn't concentrating enough. And by trying to help him, he's also distracting him. So I like that dynamic too, where it's like, Ian, if he was alone, probably could have mastered this way better than if he was with Barley, but that's just what added another layer to the complexity of how Ian can cast these spells. All in all, it's just a great family film. I think that it was genius writing too that Ian didn't get to meet his father. That's what I was expecting to happen, but I'm happy he didn't. And I'm happy he had that epiphany that Barley's been my dad this whole time. And he didn't meet his father. I thought that was great. I thought that was a very smart choice, because it would have been way too cliche for, after this massive battle, to have Ian meet his father and, talk about the journey they just went on and everything like that. So I thought it was a really, 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 really ingenious decision to have Ian buried under some rubble and only be able to see his father from a distance. And only didn't get to hear anything, just see how happy Barley was and how happy Wilden was to finally get that goodbye that they wanted to have for all of these years. I thought that was just, that was good. That was good. Octavia Spencer as the Manticore is also a lot of fun, because you can tell that she's like mentally just destroyed by how boring her life has become ever since she opened up the tavern. And I think that was translated through all of her dialogue, because she nervous talks all the time and finally realizes that she needs to spread her wings and fly, because her wings were sore and out of practice, so she couldn't do anything with them, and she really needed to exercise them out. So I thought that she caught that nervous breakdown attitude that someone might have if they were in that mental state of, what am I doing with my life right now? This is so boring. Just all the characters were great in this film. I don't know why I got the hate it did. It's not Pixar's best, but that doesn't make it a bad film in any stretch of the imagination. Which, it's kind of sad that the first original film Pixar's had in a while isn't their best. Maybe they should just stick with sequels. I don't know. I'd be fine with seeing a sequel for this one, as long as they don't try to do the same thing again, like with a family aspect. Just do something else. Now that Ian is kind of like a master spellcaster at this point. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. If you're a Pixar fan, definitely check it out. Don't let the reviews scare you off. If you love magic and wonder and beautiful imagery, you'll love this film. And again, Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, that is a duo that needs a live-action film alone as well. So we've had them in an ensemble movie, we've had them in an animated film, we need them in their own standalone film too, because that is a duo that is a great, great pair. They had a lot of fun doing this film, and I can tell. And yeah, that's all I have to say about Disney's Onward. But of course, I can't leave you guys without my final verdict. And my final verdict for Onward is going to be a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is a good film. Nothing to Pixar standards, in my opinion. They were a little under the bar at that, but still a great watch. If anything, if you don't want to spend money on it because you are afraid of the reviews, it's definitely going to come out on Disney Plus, so you can check it out there. But stay tuned next week for what reviews I have coming out. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe, share with your friends, all of that. And I will see you guys next week. That's a wrap.